In 1961, Chairman Mao took a special train and went to the south for inspection. When the train was halfway, Chairman Mao called a waiter and talked with him. Chairman Mao would talk to the waiter for two main reasons. First, be sympathetic to the people, understand the living conditions of the waiters, and see the big from the small. Second, if you are bored on the road, find someone to chat with to relieve boredom. In the carriage, Chairman Mao and the waiter had a happy chat, very happy, and talked about many things. After leaving, the waiter looked excited, proud of talking with Chairman Mao, and talked about it with his colleagues. Do you know? Chairman Mao just talked to me. Yes, of course I do. I not only know that you went to talk to Chairman Mao, but also what you two said. Hearing this, the waiter didn't take it seriously, thinking that his colleague was bragging, and continued to tease. Then tell me, what did I talk to Chairman Mao about? The colleague shocked the waiter by telling exactly what Chairman Mao had said in the carriage. You. How do you know that? You have ears, I have these. After speaking, the colleague took out the recorder and showed off in front of the waiter. This thing works really well. No matter how far away you are, you can hear everything you say clearly. Seeing this situation, the waiter was very frightened, and immediately ran to Chairman Mao's carriage and reported the truth. What? Someone eavesdropped on my speech. After returning to Beijing, Chairman Mao immediately called his secretary and asked him to find Yang Shankin. Where is Yang Shankin? Tell him to come to me immediately. Yang Shankin was doing research in Hebei at the time. After receiving the call, he felt that something was wrong and hurried back to Beijing. As soon as he arrived in Beijing, Yang Shankin received an order from Chairman Mao. A thorough investigation into the recorder incident on the special train. After investigation, the recorder incident was actually a muddled account, and the root cause was the negligence of relevant personnel and mistakes. It turns out that as early as the early days of the founding of the People's Republic of China, Chairman Mao's secretary Ye Zilong advocated the use of recorders for the convenience of recording. The recorder works for a long time, records finely, and its business ability is far above that of manpower. Therefore, in the early days of use, it was deeply loved by Chairman Mao. But in 1959, at an internal meeting, Chairman Mao was very angry and ordered strict use. At this meeting, Chairman Mao said a few words about the relationship between China and the Soviet Union. Just after he finished speaking, the people present said, "The tape recorder has already recorded it. In the future, without my approval, the recorder is not allowed to be used." Therefore, in 1961, without the order of Chairman Mao, no recorders could appear on the special train. But this time, the relevant personnel were negligent, they forgot to report to Chairman Mao, and they could use it by default. That's why the absurd scene at the beginning of the article appears. If someone hadn't deliberately shown off, Chairman Mao would never have known about it. Fortunately, the person who made the recording accidentally said everything, and the waiter who was talking to Chairman Mao also reported it immediately. Although the process is not beautiful, the result is good after all. Since then, there has been no recorder incident in the central government. Seeing this, someone asked, how much harm can a small tape recorder do? To this, I would like to answer. You can refer to Nixon in The Beautiful Country, a man who was praised by countless people, but because of the hacking scandal, he became a sinner with a very bad reputation. In 1961, Chairman Mao was accidentally overheard while he was riding a train. After Chairman Mao returned to Beijing, he called Yang Shankin to thoroughly investigate the matter, found problems, and corrected them immediately. Yang Kaihui was still alive in 1928. Why did Mao Zedong marry He Zicheng? 3 facts tell the truth. Around May 1928, Mao Zedong and He Zicheng were married in Jinggangshan, but from the perspective of historical time, Yang Kaihui died in 1930, which caused many people to speculate and even distort the facts. Yang Kaihui was still alive in 1928, so, what is the truth? American journalist Snow once interviewed Chairman Mao in 1936. In his book, He recorded some of his views objectively and explained the historical truth. Figure Chairman Mao and He Zicheng. First, due to news blockade, Mao Zedong accidentally got the news of Yang Kai-hui's sacrifice. According to the biography of Mao Zedong, the young Mao Zedong and He Zicheng gradually established a relationship. It was when he went to Yangzhou to start research in 1928, and the two matured emotionally at work. But at this time Mao Zedong had already received the news of Yang Kai-hui's sacrifice, which was actually a misinformation. In the 1980s, the staff found in the cracks in the wall of Yang Kai-hui's former residence that Yang Kai-hui hid the manuscript before his death. In it, he wrote a poem about missing his lover. The foot disease here refers to Mao Zedong suffering from serious foot injuries due to long-term walking when he left home. And Yang Kai-hui wrote this poem at the end of 1928, so it is certain that due to the enemy's blockade of Jinggangshan, Yang Kai-hui still had no contact with Mao Zedong at this time. According to He Zicheng's memories in her later years, she first met Mao Zedong in the autumn of 1927. In her impression, Mao Zedong's foot injury was very serious, even bleeding and pus. Under her careful care, he gradually recovered in less than 3 months. Therefore, it can be explained that Yang Kai-hui had no knowledge of Mao Zedong's condition, and was unable to understand her lover's situation because she could not contact her. Afterwards, Yang Kai-hui wrote in a letter in early 1930, "I haven't contacted you anymore, 1 month, 2 months, 1 year, 3 years." From these words, it can be determined that they have not contacted for a long time. Especially after the Ma Day incident, Mao Zedong realized the seriousness of the problem, so he immediately sent people down the mountain to inquire about Yang Kai-hui's news. Chairman Mao's landlord when he was in Jinggangshan was Xie Xixian. Her nephew told later that Mao Zedong wrote to Yang Kai-hui many times in November 1927 and sent them from the Ninggang post office, but he never got a reply. A few days later, Mao Zedong asked the traffic officer Wu Fuxiao to secretly go to Changsha to inquire about the news, but when he came back, he brought back the news that Yang Kai-hui had been killed. Mao Zedong did not believe this fact, so he sent people down the mountain many times to inquire, and finally got the news that Yang Kai-hui has been killed, and the whereabouts of her 3 children are unknown. At that time, Yuan Wenkai saw that Mao Zedong was in grief all day long, so he arranged for He Zicheng to take care of Mao Zedong temporarily, and finally they got married in Jinggangshan. Zhu Danhua, Mao Zemin's wife, recalled in 2002, "I heard from Mao Zemin that in 1927, the Kuomintang massacred communists everywhere in Shanghai and Wuhan, and sent people to Jinggangshan to inquire about Yang Kai-hui's news many times. Sacrifice was a foregone conclusion at that time." It can be seen from Zhu Danhua's conclusive conclusion that Mao Zedong had gradually accepted the sad news of his lover's death, and then slowly accepted his relationship with He Zicheng, and the two finally became partners. So what is the real situation on Yang Kai-hui's side? Mao Anying has been with her mother all the time, and he told Chairman Mao some details in the future. It turned out that since Mao Zedong launched the autumn harvest uprising, he had nowhere to go to Jinggangshan, the enemy began to hunt down Mao Zedong, and Yang Kai-hui was also arrested by the enemy. In order to take refuge, Yang Kai-hui returned to his hometown in Changsha with his 3 children. Yang Kai-hui is the daughter of Yang Changji, Mao Zedong's mentor in the 1st Division of Hunan Province. She has lived in Bankang, Changsha since she was a child, but the Kuomintang warlord Yang Jian still found Yang Kai-hui. In October 1930, Yang Kai-hui was arrested, and Mao Anying was imprisoned at the same time. 1 month later, because the enemy could not get any useful clues from Yang Kai-hui, they finally brutally killed Yang Kai-hui. Later, Mao Anying was rescued, and the villagers secretly sent Mao Anying's 3 brothers to Shanghai. At that time, due to the news blockade, Mao Zedong never knew about these situations. In Yang Kai-hui's manuscript, she stated that she learned from Yang Kaiming's letter in May 1929 that Mao Zedong had gone to Jinggangshan and went to work in the Central Committee, but she still could not contact Mao Zedong. Second, the relationship between Mao Zedong and He Zicheng is very real. According to He Zicheng's recollection, when she first met Mao Zedong, Mao Zedong had a good impression on her. Long hair, tall, with determination in his eyes. After the two met, He Zicheng still felt that Mao Zedong was very wise, had leadership skills, and could write essays and poems, which was very talented. So He Zicheng admired and loved Mao Zedong very much. And Mao Zedong also had a good feeling for He Zicheng. When they first met, He Zicheng was by Yuan Wenkei's side all the time. At first Mao Zedong mistook her for Yuan Wenkei's daughter. Yuan Wenkei introduced, "This is He Mingxiu's younger sister, comrade He Zicheng, who is only 18 years old now." Yuan Wenkei told Mao Zedong that He Zicheng had been educated, and very brave. He rode a horse and held 2 guns to deal with the enemy. He was also called the flower in Jinggangshan. He Zicheng was beautiful, slender, smiling every day, which surprised Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong didn't even think that there would be such an outstanding girl in such a remote place as Jinggangshan. This made Mao Zedong like He Zicheng even more, but Mao Zedong knew that he had a lover, and he only cared about He Zicheng as simply as a secretary. Later, after learning of Yang Kaihui's sacrifice, He Zicheng, in order to alleviate Mao Zedong's grief, took the initiative to help Mao Zedong with housework, and even went to Yangzin to do investigations. The relationship between the two gradually matured. Despite this, Mao Zedong told He Zicheng very frankly, "I was married and had 3 children. I stayed in my hometown in Hunan, and I have been unable to contact me now." Judging from these materials, Mao Zedong and Yang Kaihui had been unable to contact for a long time. In 1936, American journalist Edgar Snow interviewed Chairman Mao in northern Shaanxi, and later published Westward Journey. From the book, everything that Chairman Mao experienced from his childhood to the end of the Long March was described. He went over it, including her marriage, and even mentioned the original wife he was ordered by his parents to marry when he was a child. When talking about Yang Kaihui, Chairman Mao recounted the ins and outs of this incident. When Snow was sorting out, considering these emotions and life, he wrote this sentence, "The 2 of them are obviously very loyal emotionally." In fact, the loyalty here is not only emotional cherishment, but also the like-mindedness and sympathy between the 2 parties, because Chairman Mao has never forgotten Yang Kaihui. For example, in 1957, Li Shiyi, a classmate of Yang Kaihui's at school, wrote to Chairman Mao asking for a poem written by Chairman Mao and Yang Kaihui when they first got married. "Butterfly Love Flower" replied to Li Shiyi, "This poem was engraved on Yang Kaihui's tombstone in the future." For example, in 1962, when Yang Kaihui's mother Xiang Jinzi passed away, Chairman Mao wrote a tearful letter to Yang Kaihui's elder brother, Yang Kaizi, in which he said, "Yang Kaihui is my dear wife. My wife has the same appointment, and our 2 families are one family, regardless of each other." From the details of Chairman Mao's letters, it can be seen that Chairman Mao's feelings for Yang Kaihui are extremely sincere and unforgettable. After Mao Zedong graduated from Hunan No. 1 Normal School in 1918, he contacted Yang Kaihui many times, and slowly got together and became like-minded partners. If Mao Zedong and He Zicheng were partners after the revolution, then Yang Kaihui and Yang Kaihui were confidants who communicated and collided with each other in thought before the revolution, which is extremely precious. Third, the Red Army attacked Changsha twice in 1930, and Mao Zedong was still unable to contact Yang Kaihui. At the end of July 1930, Peng Dehui led the Red Army to besiege Changsha. Due to the strong counterattack of the enemy, the Red Army had to withdraw. The second time was at the end of August. After the First Red Army and the Third Red Army reunited, they began to divide their troops into 3 groups and continued to attack Changsha. At that time, Yang Kaihui lived in Itakara, only 100 miles away from the Red Army. In fact, at that time, due to the uncertainty of the party leaders, Chairman Mao was still being squeezed out by others, so he did not directly participate in the Red Army's attack on Changsha. It was not until the second attack on Changsha that some comrades began to ask Chairman Mao for instructions. Chairman Mao believed that the time is not right now. Judging from the tense situation of time and combat, on the one hand, Mao Zedong himself did not know about Yang Kaihui's situation at that time, and in addition to the critical situation in Changsha, it was reasonable that he couldn't get away to look for Yang Kaihui. Yang Kaihui said in her manuscript, "I know this day is coming." So she may have a premonition, and finally saved all her letters from referring to the cracks in the wall discovered over 10 years ago, and then entrusting the child to relatives. She was arrested as expected. In prison, she would rather die than surrender, and would not betray her husband. In the end, she calmly died and sacrificed heroically. For history, this is extremely regrettable, but Chairman Mao is a great leader who devoted his whole life to the Chinese Revolution, and he is the great savior of the Chinese people. Deng Xiaoping once said, "Without Mao Zedong, China would probably still be groping in the dark, even for a long time." Postscript. In Shaoshan's Mao's genealogy, Mao Yajou once commented on Chairman Mao when he was revising, "Hongzhong is everywhere, the country forgets home." These 8 characters are the portrayal of Chairman Mao's life. Of course, Yang Kai-hui and He Zichen, no matter who they are, their true relationship with Chairman Mao is real, and their contributions to the revolution are also great and selfless. As juniors, in addition to nostalgia, we also have full understanding and respect. In 1917, Mao Zedong was 24 years old and was studying in Hunan Normal School. During the summer vacation of that year, he and his friend Xiao Zishan went to the countryside for research. Xiao is also from Hunan. He is very famous in school and has participated in many revolutionary activities. He has the same goals as Mao Zedong and often discusses state affairs. Mao Zedong and Xiao Zishan would spend the night at farmhouses in order to understand farmers' lives and grassroots governance issues, and sometimes they could only go to temples for the night. Temple story. Once, when I went to a temple, I met a hospitable old abbot. The old abbot heard that they were students from the provincial capital, so he quickly invited them to have a vegetarian meal. After the meal, the old abbot took the initiative to chat with them. The old abbot liked Xiao Zishan very much, and hoped that he would stay and become a monk, eat vegetarian food and chant Buddha, and be company with the ancient temple. Xiao Zishan politely refused, saying that he had an ideal to realize and could not escape into Buddhism. The old abbot was very disappointed, saying that if Xiao Zishan did not enter Buddhism, he would be displaced and unable to return home. Xiao Zishan didn't care. The old abbot turned to chat with Mao Zedong about Buddhism. Mao Zedong answered calmly and in detail. The old abbot was very satisfied, saying that Mao Zedong's future was limitless, and he could determine the development of religion. Xiao Zishan. Future development. Mao Zedong didn't care too much about the old abbot's words, so he bid farewell to the old abbot with Xiao Zishan and continued his journey. Later, Xiao Zishan and Mao Zedong disagreed, and each took a different path. Xiao Zishan believed in anarchism and criticized left and right. Mao Zedong became a loyal believer of the Bolsheviks and struggled all his life for the realization of communism and national liberation. In 1925, Xiao Zishan joined the Kuomintang under the persuasion of his friends, and broke up with Mao Zedong the next year, and they had no contact with each other. Xiao Zishan still missed the old friendship, and Yang Kai-hui wanted to rescue Yang Kai-hui when he was killed, but he couldn't. In 1945, he couldn't bear to be with Chiang Kai-shek and left to work abroad. He went to South America in 1951, died in the 1970s, and was buried there. The words of the old abbot came true, and Xiao Zishan was devastated for the rest of his life, unable to return home. Mao Zedong and his comrades worked hard for decades to successfully build the country. Overthrow oppression, let the people stand up and live a happy life. After the founding of the People's Republic of China, the central government discussed the management of religion. Some people think that religion is feudal dross and should be abolished. Mao Zedong believed that religion is a traditional culture, and it also has the meaning of persuading good people. It should be preserved and guided so that it can become a part of the new China. The old abbot came true again. Mao Zedong decided the fate of religion. Some people criticized Xiao Zishan for being idealistic, with high goals and low abilities, and for taking a wrong path. This is a typical afterthought thinking, and the reason is reversed from the result. The society at that time was complicated and no one could determine right from wrong. It was not easy to dare to reform, so Xiao Zishan should be respected.